Hana Kim stared at the message on her computer screen for the 10th time that morning. The words looked impossible, like something from a dream or a movie. But the official seal of the United Nations was real. The signature from the Secretary General was real. And the strange, glowing device that had been delivered to her office yesterday was definitely real. She was going to meet aliens. Not just any aliens, but the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Hana worked as a language expert at Seoul National University. She studied how different cultures talk to each other. She had learned 23 human languages and could speak with people from almost anywhere on Earth. But she had never imagined she would need to speak for all of humanity. The message was short and simple. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with one human. They had chosen her. They had been watching Earth for over 800 years, and now they wanted answers. They wanted to know if humans deserved to join the other intelligent species in the galaxy, or if Earth should be left alone forever. Hana's hands shook as she picked up the strange device. It looked like a small silver ball covered in tiny lights. When she touched it, the lights began to dance and a voice spoke inside her head. The voice was calm and cold, speaking perfect Korean. Dr. Hana Kim, you will be transported to the council station at exactly noon, your local time. You may bring no weapons, no recording devices, and no other humans. You will speak for your entire species. Do not disappoint us. The voice went silent. Hana looked at the clock. She had 2 hours. She tried to eat breakfast, but her stomach felt like it was full of rocks. She tried to call her mother, but what could she say? Hello, Mom. I'm going to meet some aliens today. If I mess up, they might decide to ignore humanity forever. Instead, she sent a simple text message saying she loved her. Hana put on her best black suit and looked at herself in the mirror. She was 34 years old, average height, with short black hair and serious dark eyes. She looked like a professor, which she was. She did not look like someone who should speak for 7 billion people. At exactly noon, the silver device in her hand grew warm. The world around her began to blur and spin. She felt like she was falling through space. But she was not afraid. The sensation was almost peaceful, like floating in warm water. When the spinning stopped, Hana was standing in a place that made her brain hurt to look at. She was inside something huge and strange. The walls seemed to be made of crystal, but they were also transparent. Through them, she could see stars and space. But the view changed constantly, like looking through moving water. The floor under her feet felt solid, but it glowed with soft blue light. The air smelled clean and slightly sweet, like flowers after rain. Everything was quiet except for a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Then she saw them. The aliens were arranged in a circle around her. There were 12 of them, and each one was completely different from the others. Some looked almost like humans, but wrong in small ways. Others looked like nothing she had ever seen before. The closest one looked like it was made of living light. It had no solid body, just a shape made of glowing colors that shifted and changed. When it moved, little sparks of electricity danced around it. Its voice came from everywhere at once, speaking in perfect Korean. I am Nex of the Veltari. I speak for the Galactic Council today. To Nex's left sat something that looked like a giant crystal spider. Its body was transparent, and Hana could see strange organs pulsing inside it. When it moved, it made musical sounds like wind chimes. Next to the crystal spider was a creature that looked like a walking tree, but its bark was silver and its leaves were tiny mirrors. On the other side of the circle sat beings that hurt to look at. One seemed to change shape constantly, never staying the same for more than a few seconds. Another looked like a shadow with too many arms. A third looked almost human, but its skin was pure white, and it had no eyes, just smooth skin, where eyes should be. Each alien sat on a different kind of chair or platform. Some floated in the air. Others seemed to grow from the floor itself. The crystal spider hung from the ceiling on threads that glowed like neon lights. Hana felt very small and very human. Nex spoke again. Human Hana Kim. We have watched your species for 847 of your years. We have seen your wars. We have seen your pollution. We have seen your endless fights and arguments. We have seen how you treat your own planet and each other. The other aliens began to make sounds. Some whistled. Others clicked or buzzed. The crystal spider played a tune that sounded sad and angry at the same time. Hana realized they were talking to each other in languages she could not understand. "We have rules in this galaxy," Nex continued. "Species that join our council must prove they are civilized. They must show they can live in peace. They must show they care about life and knowledge and growth." Nex paused, and the lights in its body grew brighter. "Your species has failed every test we use to judge civilized beings. You fight wars over resources you could share. You pollute the only planet you have. You create weapons that could destroy your entire world. You divide yourselves by skin color, religion, and imaginary lines on maps." The shadow creature with too many arms leaned forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Your species is violent and primitive. You should not be allowed to spread to other worlds." The tree-like alien rustled its mirror leaves, creating a sound like gentle rain. "They are young and foolish. Perhaps they will grow wiser in time." "Time is not unlimited," said another voice. This one came from something that looked like a floating jellyfish made of glass. "They are already building ships to travel to other stars. If we wait too long, they may become too dangerous to control." Hana listened to them talk about humans like they were discussing animals in a zoo. Her fear began to change into something else. She was getting angry, but she forced herself to stay calm. Getting mad would only prove they were right about humans being primitive. Nex raised one appendage that looked like an arm made of lightning. The other aliens became quiet. "Before we make our final decision about your species, we will give you one chance to speak. This is not normal for us. Usually we simply observe and decide. But some among us believe you might have something interesting to say." Nex's lights pulsed in a pattern that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "Explain Earth to us, human Hana Kim. Tell us why your species deserves to join the civilized galaxy. Tell us why we should not simply ignore your world until you destroy yourselves, or grow up enough to matter." The chamber became completely silent. Even the humming sound stopped. 12 alien civilizations, each thousands of years older than humanity, waited for her to speak. Hana looked around the circle at beings that could probably destroy Earth with a thought. She thought about her mother in Seoul, about her students at the university, about children playing in parks, and scientists working late in laboratories, and farmers growing food, and doctors saving lives. She thought about everything humans had ever done wrong and everything they had ever done right. Then she took a deep breath and began to speak. Hana's voice was steady when she began to speak, even though her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. "You want to know about Earth?" she said, looking at each alien in turn. "You want to know about humans. I will tell you the truth, but maybe not the truth you expect." The crystal spider made a soft chiming sound. Nex's lights flickered in what might have been curiosity. "You are right about many things," Hana continued. "We do fight wars. We do pollute our planet. We do make terrible mistakes. But you are also wrong about something very important. You think these things make us weak. I think they make us strong." The shadow creature with too many arms leaned back, and Hana heard what sounded like laughter, but cold and mean. "Let me tell you about a man named Hyunwoo Park," Hana said. "He lived in North Korea, which is a country on Earth where people have very hard lives. The government there controls everything. People cannot leave, and many do not have enough food." She paused, making sure the aliens were listening. Hyunwoo had a daughter named Bora. When she was 6 years old, she became very sick. The doctors in North Korea could not help her. Hyunwoo knew that in South Korea, where I live, there were better doctors. But the two countries are enemies. The border between them is covered with fences and soldiers and landmines. The tree-like alien rustled its mirror leaves softly. Hyunwoo had lost his leg in an accident when he was young. He walked with an artificial leg made of cheap plastic and metal. Walking was always painful for him. But when his daughter got sick, he made a decision that your logical minds might call stupid. Hana walked slowly around the circle as she spoke, looking at each alien. He picked up his sick daughter and started walking. He walked across North Korea to the Chinese border. Then he walked across China. Then he walked across Laos and Thailand. He carried Bora on his back when she was too weak to walk. He begged for food when they were hungry. He slept in the rain when they had no shelter. The floating jellyfish creature pulsed with soft light. How far did he walk? 3,000 kilometers, Hana said. On a broken leg, carrying a sick child with no money and no help from any government. It took him 8 months. His artificial leg broke twice, and he fixed it with wire and tape. He got sick from bad water. He was arrested and beaten and robbed. She stopped walking and faced Nex directly. Any logical being would have given up. Any smart person would have realized it. Was impossible. But Yunwoo was human, and humans do not know how to quit. The chamber was very quiet. Even the background humming seemed softer. He reached the South Korean embassy in Bangkok. Bora got the medicine she needed. She is now 23 years old and studying to be a doctor herself. She wants to help other sick children. The crystal spider made a complex series of musical notes. Through the translation device, Hana heard, "This story proves only that your species is illogical." Hana smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. "Yes," she said. "We are completely illogical. We refuse to accept defeat even when defeat makes sense. When our planet froze during the ice ages, we should have died. Instead, we learned to make fire and clothes and houses. When diseases killed millions of us, we should have given up. Instead, we studied the diseases and learned to stop them." She gestured toward the viewing wall, where Earth was visible as a small blue dot. "When we looked up at the stars and realized how far away they were, we should have decided space travel was impossible. Instead, we built rockets. When we discovered that our closest star is 4 light years away and would take thousands of years to reach, we should have forgotten about it. Instead, we started planning anyway." The tree-like aliens spoke with a voice like wind through leaves. "But surely this stubborn refusal to accept limits has caused great suffering." "Yes," Hana agreed. "It has. Our refusal to quit has led us into terrible wars. Our determination to keep trying has made us destroy forests and pollute rivers. Our belief that we can solve any problem has created new problems." She paused, letting that sink in. "But it has also created miracles. Let me tell you about Dr. Jin A. Lee." Hana began walking again, slowly circling the chamber. 60 years ago, my country, Korea, was fighting a civil war. Families were split apart. Brothers fought against brothers. Cities were destroyed. Millions of people died. The shadow creature shifted, its many arms moving restlessly. Jin-A was a young doctor working in a field hospital. Her job was to take care of wounded soldiers. But here is what makes her special. She took care of soldiers from both sides of the war. "That makes no sense," said the jellyfish creature. "She was helping her enemies." "Yes," Hana said. "And when her commanding officers told her to stop, she refused. When they threatened to court-martial her, she kept working. When enemy soldiers were brought to her hospital, she treated them exactly the same as her own side's soldiers." Nex's lights pulsed in a faster rhythm. "Why would she do this?" "Because they were hurt," Hana said simply. "Because they were young men, far from home, bleeding and scared and calling for their mothers. Because Jin-A looked at them and saw not enemies but someone's sons." She stopped and faced the center of the circle. "This is what you do not understand. About humans. Yes, we fight wars. But in every war, there are humans like Jin-A who risk everything to save people they are supposed to hate. Yes, we are tribal and suspicious of outsiders. But in every tribe, there are humans who welcome strangers anyway." The crystal spider played a melody that sounded thoughtful. "You describe your species as contradictory." "We are," Hana said. "We are the most contradictory species that has ever lived. We are capable of great cruelty and great kindness, often at the same time, often by the same people." She thought of her grandmother, who had hidden refugees during the war while her own family went hungry. "You want to know why Earth matters? Because Earth created a species that refuses to be logical about hope. We keep believing things can get better even when all evidence says they cannot. We keep trying to save each other even when it makes no strategic sense." The tree-like alien rustled its leaves again. "But this illogical hope has not prevented your wars or your environmental destruction." "No," Hana admitted. "It has not. But it has done something else. It has made us a species that never stops trying to be better." She walked to the viewing wall and placed her hand against the crystal surface. Every human child learns about our worst mistakes. We teach them about slavery and genocide and environmental destruction, not because we are proud of these things, but because we want them to do better than we did. Behind her, she heard what might have been whispered conversations in alien languages. Every day, millions of humans wake up and try to solve problems they did not create. They try to clean up pollution they did not make. They try to make peace in conflicts they did not start. They adopt children who are not related to them. They donate money to help people they will never meet. She turned back to face the council. You see our violence and call us primitive. But I see something else. I see a species that has learned to feel guilty about violence. I see a species that builds hospitals after every war, that sends food to their former enemies, that writes laws to prevent the mistakes they made before. The SciFi chamber was completely silent now. You ask why humans deserve to join the galactic community. Maybe we do not deserve it. Maybe we are too violent, too chaotic, too stubborn and illogical, but we will never stop trying to deserve it. And maybe, just maybe, that matters more than being perfect. Hana looked at each alien in turn. You want to know what makes Earth special? Earth created a species that looks at the impossible and says, not today. Earth created humans who refuse to quit, even when quitting is the smart thing to do. Earth created a species that chooses hope over logic, love over strategy, and second chances over justice. She took a deep breath. And that is why, no matter what you decide today, humans will keep reaching for the stars, because we do not know how to give up. Because we believe, against all evidence and logic, that we can become worthy of them. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, Nex spoke. You speak of refusing, to surrender as if it were a virtue. But what of the cost? What of the suffering caused by this stubborn hope? Hana nodded slowly. She had expected this question. That, she said, is a fair question. And I have more to tell you. The alien that looked like a walking shadow shifted forward, its many arms moving like dark smoke. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. Your stubborn hope creates chaos, it said. We have observed your species for centuries. You cannot even agree on simple things. You have hundreds of governments, thousands of religions, millions of different opinions about everything. This is not the sign of a civilized species. Hana nodded. You are absolutely right. We are chaos. We are 8 billion people who cannot agree on anything. We fight about everything, from what food to eat, to what gods to worship, to how to organize our societies. The crystal spider chimed softly, a sound like broken bells. Then you admit your species is too divided to join a galactic community? No, Hana said, and her voice was stronger now. I am saying that our chaos is exactly why you need us. She walked to the center of the circle, turning slowly to look at each council member. Let me tell you about Donghyun An. He was a computer programmer in Seoul, my city. 3 years ago, there was a disease that spread all over Earth. Millions of people got sick. Everyone had to stay in their homes for months. The floating jellyfish pulsed with interest. We observed this event. Your species handled it poorly. Too much arguing, too little cooperation. Yes, Hana agreed. Our governments argued about what to do. Some countries closed their borders. Others kept them open. Some people wore masks. Others refused. Scientists disagreed with each other. Politicians blamed each other. It was complete chaos. She paused, letting them absorb this. Donghyun was stuck in his apartment for 3 months. He was bored and lonely. He had nothing to do except play video games and work on his computer. But Donghyun was curious about something that had been bothering scientists for 50 years. Nex's lights flickered in a pattern that might have been attention. Scientists had been trying to understand how proteins fold, Hana continued. Proteins are tiny machines inside living things. If you can understand how they fold, you can cure many diseases. But the problem was incredibly complex. The biggest computers on Earth had been working on it for decades. The tree-like alien rustled its mirror leaves. We are familiar with protein, folding. It is indeed a difficult problem. Donghyun was not a biologist, Hana said. He was not a doctor or a scientist. He was just a bored programmer who liked puzzles. But he had an idea that no one else had thought of. He wondered if he could use video game technology to solve the protein folding problem. She began walking again, her voice growing more excited. He worked for 6 months in his basement apartment, eating instant noodles and drinking too much coffee. He had no official funding, no research team, no institutional support, just curiosity and time. The shadow creature leaned forward. And he failed, of course? No, Hannah said with a smile. He solved it. This unemployed programmer, working alone in his basement, solved a problem that had stumped the greatest minds in science for 50 years. The chamber went very quiet. Even the humming stopped. That is impossible, said the crystal spider. No, Hannah said. That is human. You see, your species think in perfect harmony. When the Veltari face a problem, all of you think about it in the same way. Your thoughts are coordinated and logical and efficient. She gestured to Nex. That is beautiful. But it is also limiting. If the first approach does not work, you try the second approach. If that fails, you try the third. You work through solutions in an orderly, systematic way. The jellyfish creature pulsed. This is the logical way to solve problems. For you, yes, Hannah said, but humans do not think in harmony. When we face a problem, 8 billion minds attack it from 8 billion different angles. We do not coordinate our thinking. We do not follow logical sequences. We just try everything at once. She pointed up at the crystal ceiling. When Dong Hyun was working on protein folding, there were also teams in America trying to solve it with quantum computers. There were biologists in Germany using artificial intelligence. There were mathematicians in India using new equations. There were programmers in Brazil trying neural networks. The tree-like alien spoke softly. So many different approaches to the same problem. Yes, Hannah said, and most of them failed. The quantum computer approach failed. The artificial intelligence approach failed. The new mathematics failed. The neural networks failed. 99% of human attempts to solve any problem fail completely. The shadow creature made a sound like grinding gears. This proves our point. Your chaos creates waste and inefficiency. Hannah shook her head. No. It creates breakthrough. That 1% of solutions that work, they change everything. And they only work because we try so many different things that no logical species would ever attempt. She walked over to the viewing wall again, looking out at the stars. Your species have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. You have created beautiful civilizations, perfect societies, incredible technologies. But when was the last time any of you had a truly new idea? The silence that followed was longer and deeper than before. You think in harmony, Hannah continued. You make decisions together. You solve problems systematically. It is elegant and efficient and logical, but it is also predictable. She turned back to face them. Humans think in chaos. We disagree about everything. We approach every problem from different directions. Most of our ideas are terrible, but some of them are things that no logical mind would ever consider. The crystal spider played a complex melody. Give us another example. Hannah thought for a moment. Music, she said. Human music exists because different cultures mixed their sounds together in ways that should not have worked. Jazz music happened because African rhythms met European instruments in American cities. Rock music happened because electric technology met folk traditions. Electronic music happened because computer programmers started playing with sound instead of numbers. She began walking around the circle again. None of these musical forms were planned. They all emerged from chaos, from different groups of humans accidentally influencing each other. Most of the attempts to mix different musical styles sound terrible, but the ones that work create something completely new. The tree-like alien rustled thoughtfully. You are saying that your lack of coordination creates innovation. Yes, Hannah said, and not just in music. Our greatest scientific discoveries came from people who disagreed with established thinking. Our best technologies came from inventors, working in garages and basements, not from official research institutions. She stopped in front of Nex. You want to know why human technology advanced so quickly? Because we do not have a central authority that decides what research is worthwhile. We have millions of people trying millions of different approaches. Most of them fail. But the ones that succeed leap forward in ways that careful, coordinated research never could. The jellyfish creature pulsed slowly. But surely this creates dangerous instability. Yes, Hana admitted. It does. Our chaos has created terrible weapons. It has created technologies that harm our environment. It has led to confusion and conflict and waste. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But it has also created solutions to problems we did not even know we had. When Dong-hyun solved protein folding, he was not trying to cure diseases. He was just playing with an interesting puzzle, but his solution led to new medicines that have saved millions of lives. The shadow creature shifted restlessly. You speak as if chaos is superior to order. No, Hana said. I am saying they are both necessary. Your species have perfected order. You have created stable civilizations that last for millennia. You solve problems efficiently and avoid waste and conflict. She looked around the circle. But maybe the galaxy needs some chaos too. Maybe it needs a species that tries impossible things just to see what happens. Maybe it needs minds that do not think logically, that approach problems from directions no sensible being would consider. Nex's lights pulsed in a rapid pattern. You suggest that your dysfunction could benefit the galactic community. I suggest that diversity of thought is valuable, Hana said. You have 12 species on this council, but you all think in similar ways. You are all logical, coordinated, efficient. You make decisions by consensus and solve problems systematically. She gestured toward Earth, visible through the crystal wall. What if you added a species that makes decisions by arguing? A species that solves problems by trying everything at once? A species that creates new ideas by accident, through the collision of different cultures and different ways of thinking? Chamber fell quiet again. Hana could see the aliens communicating with each other in their various languages, through flashing lights and musical sounds and other signals she could not understand. Finally, the crystal spider spoke. Your chaos has created much suffering on your world. Hana nodded slowly. Yes, it has. And that brings me to the hardest truth about humans. We do not just create chaos in our thinking. We create chaos in our hearts as well. The floating jellyfish pulsed brighter. Explain. Hana took a deep breath. This was the part she had been dreading. We do not just think illogically, she said. We feel illogically too, and sometimes that changes everything. The creature that looked like a floating jellyfish moved closer to Hana. Its transparent body pulsed with soft blue light as it spoke. Your species makes decisions based on emotions rather than logic. This is a serious flaw. Emotions cloud judgment and lead to poor choices. Hana looked at the jellyfish creature, then at the others around the circle. She could see in their postures and movements that they all agreed with this statement. To them, emotion was weakness. You are right, she said. Humans make terrible decisions because of their emotions. We start wars because we are angry. We waste resources because we are greedy. We hurt each other because we are afraid or jealous or proud. The shadow creature with many arms leaned forward. Then you admit this is a flaw that makes your species unfit for galactic civilization. No, Hana said quietly. I'm about to tell you why our emotional decisions, even the bad ones, are exactly what the galaxy needs. She walked to the center of the circle again, but this time she moved more slowly, as if the weight of what she was about to say was making each step harder. Let me tell you about my grandmother, So-young Kim. Hana's voice became softer, more personal. She lived through World War II, when my country was occupied by Japan. Life was very hard then. People did not have enough food. The occupying soldiers were cruel. Everyone was afraid. She paused, looking down at her hands. In 1943, my grandmother was 22 years old and married to my grandfather. They had a small house in Seoul and barely enough food for themselves. My grandmother was pregnant with my father. The crystal spider made a soft chiming sound. This was a time of great hardship for your species. Yes, Hana said. And during this time, something happened that changed my family forever. One night, there was a knock on my grandmother's door. Hana began walking slowly around the circle as she continued the story. When she opened the door, she found a family of strangers, a man, a woman, and 2 small children. They were Jewish refugees who had escaped from Europe. They had traveled thousands of miles to reach Korea, and they had nowhere else to go. The tree-like alien rustled its mirror leaves. What did your grandmother do? The logical thing would have been to turn them away, Hana said. My grandmother was pregnant and poor. She had no extra food, no extra space, no extra anything. Helping these strangers would put her own family at risk. If the occupying soldiers found out she was hiding refugees, they would probably kill her. She stopped walking and faced Nex directly. Any logical being would have said, I am sorry, but I cannot help you. I have my own family to protect. The floating jellyfish pulsed. And this would have been the rational choice. Yes, Hana agreed. But my grandmother was human, and humans do not always make rational choices. She smiled slightly, remembering. She looked at those two children, hungry and scared and far from home, and she did something completely illogical. She let them in. She gave them food she could not spare. She hid them in her house for 8 months, until the war ended. The shadow creature shifted restlessly. This was foolish. She risked her life and her unborn child's life for strangers. Yes, Hana said. It was completely foolish. And when I asked her about it many years later when I was old enough to understand, do you know what she told me? The chamber was very quiet. She said, they were someone's children. That was her entire explanation, not because it was the right thing to do, not because she had a duty to help, not because of any political or religious belief, just because they were someone's children, and she could not bear to see children suffer. Hana's voice grew stronger. This is what you do not understand about human emotions. Yes, they make us do stupid things, but they also make us do impossible things. She gestured toward the viewing wall where Earth hung in space. Every day on that planet, humans make choices that do not make sense. Parents work 3 jobs to pay for their children's education, even though it would be easier to accept that their children will be poor. Teachers spend their own money on school supplies. For students they barely know, doctors travel to dangerous places to treat diseases that do not threaten their own countries. The crystal spider played a melody that sounded puzzled. But why do they do these things if there is no logical benefit? Because they love, Hana said simply, and love is the most illogical force in the universe. She walked over to the tree-like alien. Let me tell you about Jiwan Nam. He was a businessman in Seoul who became very rich selling electronics. He had everything he could want. A big house, expensive cars, the best food, luxury vacations. The tree alien's mirror leaves reflected Hana's face as she spoke. When Jiwan was 50 years old, he saw a news report about children in Africa who had no schools. Their villages were too poor to build schools or pay teachers. The children wanted to learn, but they had no chance for education. The jellyfish creature pulsed. This was not his problem to solve. No, Hana agreed. It was not his problem at all. These children lived on a different continent. They were not his nationality, not his religion, not his family. Helping them would cost him money and give him nothing in return. She paused. Jiwan sold his house, his cars, and his business. He used all the money to build schools in villages across Africa. He moved there and spent the rest of his life teaching children and training teachers. The shadow creature made a grinding sound. This makes no economic sense. None at all, Hana said. Jiwan gave up wealth and comfort to live in poor villages, working 18 hours a day, earning no money, far from his friends and family. Any logical analysis would say he made a terrible decision. She smiled. But I met some of those children 10 years later. They had become doctors and engineers and teachers themselves. They were building hospitals and roads and more schools. One of them discovered a new treatment for malaria. Another developed a water purification system that now helps millions of people. Hana walked back to the center of the circle. Jiwan's illogical decision to help strangers created a ripple effect that changed thousands of lives. And it all happened because he felt something that made no logical sense. Love for children he had never met. The tree alien spoke softly. You are saying that irrational love can create rational benefits. I am saying that love is the reason humans refuse to accept a world where suffering is inevitable, Hana said. Our emotions tell us that every life matters, even when our logic says we should only care about our own survival. She looked around the circle at the 12 alien species. You have created perfect societies by making logical decisions. You have eliminated suffering by being rational about resource allocation. You have achieved peace by controlling emotions that lead to conflict. The chamber was completely silent. But what you have also eliminated is the irrational drive to save everyone, even strangers, even enemies, even when it makes no sense. Hana's voice grew more passionate. Humans do not just help their own families or their own tribes or their own species. We adopt animals that serve no purpose except to make us happy. We build hospitals in countries we will never visit. We donate money to help people we will never meet. She gestured toward the aliens. When there is an earthquake or a flood or a disaster anywhere on Earth, humans from every country send help. Not because they expect anything in return, not because it benefits them strategically, but because they cannot bear to watch others suffer. The crystal spider chimed softly. This seems inefficient. It is completely inefficient, Hana agreed. But it is also the reason why human civilization keeps moving toward more equality, more justice, more care for the weak and vulnerable. She walked to the viewing wall and placed both hands against the crystal. You see our wars and our pollution and our conflicts, and you think we are primitive. But look closer. Look at the direction we are moving. Behind her, she could hear the aliens communicating in their various languages. 200 years ago, most humans thought slavery was acceptable. Now, every human government on Earth has made it illegal. 100 years ago, most humans thought women should not be allowed to vote or work or own property. Now half of our leaders are women. She turned back to face them. 50 years ago, humans thought it was acceptable to dump poison into our rivers and smoke into our air. Now, we are changing our entire energy system to protect our environment, even though it costs trillions of dollars. The floating jellyfish pulsed brighter. You are saying your species is evolving ethically? Yes, Hana said, not because logic tells us to, but because our emotions will not let us accept a world where others suffer unnecessarily. She looked directly at Nex. Your species may have achieved perfect logic, perfect efficiency, perfect peace. But I wonder, when was the last time any of you felt compelled to help a stranger? When did you last make a decision that cost you something but benefited someone else? The silence that followed was the longest yet. Finally, the shadow creature spoke. You suggest that irrational emotion is superior to logical thought. No, Hana said. I suggest that maybe the galaxy needs both. Maybe it needs species that make perfect logical decisions, and maybe it also needs one species that makes terrible emotional decisions that sometimes turn out to save everyone. She paused. Because there is one more thing about human emotions that I have not told you yet. Something that might be the most important thing of all. Nex's glowing form pulsed with what looked like impatience. The lights in the Veltari's body moved faster, creating patterns that hurt Hana's eyes to follow. You have spoken of your species' refusal to surrender, of your chaotic thinking, and of your irrational emotions, Nex said. These traits have caused great suffering on your world. Your wars, your environmental destruction, your endless conflicts, all of these come from the very qualities you claim are strengths. The other aliens made sounds of agreement. The crystal spider chimed in harmony with itself, creating a complex chord that sounded like approval. The shadow creature's many arms moved in what might have been nodding. Hana looked around the circle. She could feel the mood in the chamber shifting against her. The aliens were losing patience with her defense of humanity. You are absolutely right, she said, and her voice was quieter now, more thoughtful. Everything you have observed about human suffering is true. We have caused terrible pain to each other and to our world. She walked slowly to the center of the circle and sat down on the glowing floor. The action surprised the aliens. None of them had expected her to sit during such a formal proceeding. But you are missing something important about human suffering, she continued. You see it as evidence of our failure. I see it as evidence of our greatest strength. The tree-like alien rustled its mirror leaves. How can suffering be strength? Hana looked up at the crystal ceiling, where stars moved slowly past like distant fireflies. Let me tell you about Yujin Choi, she said. She was born in Busan, a city by the ocean in Korea. When she was 16, she was in a car accident. The doctors had to cut off both of her legs to save her life. The floating jellyfish pulsed with what might have been sympathy. This was a great tragedy for her. Yes, Hana said. For months after the accident, Yujin wanted to die. She could not walk, she could not dance, which she had loved. She could not play sports. She felt like her life was over. Hana shifted, her position on the floor, still looking up at the stars. In your societies, Yujin would probably have been given artificial legs and returned to a normal life. Your technology could have fixed her problem quickly and efficiently. The crystal spider chimed softly. This would be the logical solution. But humans do not always choose the logical solution, Hana said. Yujin spent 2 years learning to walk again on artificial legs. But instead of just returning to her old life, she decided to do something that seemed impossible. She looked around at the aliens. She decided to become a swimmer. The shadow creature made a grinding sound that might have been confusion. But she had no legs. How could she swim competitively? She could not, Hana said simply. At least not the way other people swim. She had to learn completely new techniques. She had to train twice as hard as anyone else. She had to fail over and over again. Hana stood up slowly, still looking at each alien in turn. It took her 4 years to become good enough to compete. It took her 8 years to become one of the best disabled swimmers in the world. It took her 12 years to win a gold medal in the Paralympic Games. The tree alien's leaves reflected the lights from Nex's body as it spoke. This is impressive, but it does not explain why suffering is strength. Yujin could have stopped. There, Hana continued. She had proved that she could overcome her disability. She had achieved more than anyone expected. But that is not what she did. Hana began walking around the circle again, but slowly, thoughtfully. Yujin used the money from her swimming career to build a training center for disabled children. She teaches kids who have lost arms or legs or who were born with physical problems. She shows them that their limitations do not have to define their possibilities. The floating jellyfish pulsed brighter. She helps others who face similar challenges. Yes, but more than that, Hana said. The children she teaches do not just learn to swim. They learn something else, something that you cannot teach in schools or download into computers. She stopped walking and faced the center of the circle. They learn that pain can be transformed into purpose. They learn that suffering can become strength. They learn that the worst things that happen to you do not have to be the end of your story. The chamber grew very quiet. Even the background humming seemed to fade. This is what your logical minds cannot understand, Hana continued. Humans do not just endure suffering. We use it. We transform it into wisdom, into compassion, into determination to prevent others from suffering the same way. She gestured toward the viewing wall where Earth was visible. Every human doctor who works with cancer patients has been touched by cancer in some way. Every human who fights against poverty has known what it feels like to be poor. Every human who works for peace has lived through war or heard the stories of those who did. The crystal spider played a melody that sounded almost sad. You are saying that pain creates empathy. I am saying that pain creates understanding, Hana corrected. And understanding creates action. She walked over to the shadow creature. Let me tell you about Minho Yoon. When he was 8 years old, his house caught fire. His parents and his little sister died in that fire. Minho survived, but he was badly burned and spent months in the hospital. The shadow creature's many arms moved restlessly. Another tragedy. Yes, Hana said. Minho was adopted by his uncle, but he never forgot that night. He had nightmares for years. He was afraid of fire, afraid of small spaces, afraid of being alone. She paused, letting the weight of the story settle. When Minho grew up, he became a firefighter. The tree alien rustled in what sounded like surprise. He chose to face the very thing that had caused his trauma? Not just face it, Hana said. He chose to fight it. Minho has saved hundreds of people from fires over the past 20 years. He runs into burning buildings when everyone else is running out. The floating jellyfish pulsed rapidly. This seems like it would cause him great psychological pain. It does, Hana agreed. Every time Minho enters a burning building, he remembers that night when he lost his family. Every time he carries a child out of a fire, he thinks about his little sister who did not survive. She looked around the circle, but he does it anyway. because his pain taught him something that no amount of training or education could teach. He knows exactly what it feels like to lose everything to fire. And that knowledge makes him willing to risk his life to prevent others from feeling that same pain. Nex's lights pulsed in a slow, thoughtful pattern. You suggest that trauma creates heroes. I suggest that trauma creates understanding, and understanding creates choice, Hana said. Minho could have chosen to hide from fire for the rest of his life. Instead, he chose to fight it. She walked back to the center of the circle. This is what you do not see when you observe human suffering from a distance. You see the wars, but you do not see the peace workers who dedicate their lives to preventing future wars because they remember what war feels like. You see the pollution, but you do not see the environmental scientists who work 18 hours a day to save the planet because they have seen what destruction looks like. The chamber was completely silent now. You see our mistakes, but you do not see how every mistake becomes a lesson that we teach to our children. You see our pain, but you do not see how we transform that pain into wisdom. Hana sat down on the floor again, looking up at the aliens who towered above her. Your species have achieved peace by avoiding conflict. You have achieved prosperity by managing resources carefully. You have achieved stability by making logical decisions. She paused. But humans have achieved something else. We have learned to grow from our failures. We have learned to become stronger at the broken places. We have learned to turn our worst experiences into our greatest strengths. The crystal spider played a long, complex melody before speaking. But surely this process of learning through suffering is inefficient. Could you not simply teach these lessons without the pain? Hana shook her head. You can teach someone about fire by showing them pictures of burns, but only someone who has been burned truly understands what fire can do. You can teach someone about war by reading them history books, but only someone who has lived through war truly understands why peace is worth any sacrifice to achieve. She stood up slowly. Human wisdom is not abstract knowledge that we download or inherit. It is lived experience that we earn through surviving difficult things. And that kind of wisdom creates a kind of compassion and determination that you cannot get any other way. The tree alien spoke softly. You are saying that your species' suffering has taught you things that our peaceful development could not teach us? Yes, Hana said. And more than that, our suffering has taught us something that might be the most important lesson in the galaxy. She looked at each alien in turn. It has taught us that no matter how bad things get, they can always get better. It has taught us that the worst experiences in life are not endings, they are beginnings of something new. The silence that followed was different from the previous silences. This one felt heavier, more thoughtful. Finally, Nex spoke. You have given us much to consider, human Hanakim, but we must ask, if your species can grow from suffering, why do you continue to create new suffering? Why do you not simply apply these lessons and achieve the peace that we have achieved? Hana smiled. And for the first time since, Nex's form brightened until the lights in the Veltari's body became almost too bright to look at. When it spoke, its voice carried a tone that Hana had not heard before. Something that might have been frustration, or perhaps confusion. You have spoken of resilience, chaos, emotion, and growth through suffering, Nex said. But these qualities have not prevented your species from continuing to make the same mistakes. You still fight wars. You still pollute your environment. You still divide yourselves and harm each other. The crystal spider chimed in harmony, creating sounds like bells in a windstorm. If your species truly learns from suffering, why do you continue to create new suffering? Why have you not achieved the peace and stability that we have achieved? The other aliens made sounds of agreement. The shadow creature's many arms moved in agitation. The tree-like alien's mirror leaves reflected the lights in the chamber, creating dancing patterns on the walls. Hana looked around the circle at these beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Each of their species had achieved perfect societies. No war, no poverty, no conflict, no chaos. They had solved all the problems that still plagued humanity. You are asking the right question, she said quietly. And the answer is the most important thing I can tell you about humans. She walked to the viewing wall and placed her hand against the crystal surface. Earth hung in space beyond, a small blue dot surrounded by infinite darkness. We are still learning, she said. And we will never stop learning. The floating jellyfish pulsed with what might have been impatience. But learning implies eventual mastery. When will your species master these lessons and achieve peace? Hana turned back to face the council. Never, she said, and her voice was filled with something that sounded almost like joy. We will never stop learning because we will never stop growing. The shadow creature leaned forward. This makes no sense. Growth must have limits. Development must reach completion. For you, yes, Hana said. Your species grew until you achieved perfection, and then you stopped. You reached the end of your development. You solved all your problems, and now you maintain those solutions. She began walking slowly around the circle. But humans are different. We do not grow toward a final perfect form. We grow toward becoming more than we were yesterday. The tree alien rustled its leaves. Explain this difference. Hana stopped in front of Nax. 847 years ago, when you first started watching Earth, humans owned other humans as slaves. We thought this was normal and acceptable. The crystal spider chimed softly. We observed this practice. It was one of the reasons we classified your species as primitive. But we changed, Hana continued. We decided that slavery was wrong. We fought wars to end it. We wrote laws against it. Today, every human government on Earth has made slavery illegal. She moved to the next alien in the circle. 600 years ago, most humans thought that women were inferior to men. We did not allow women to own property, to vote, or to make decisions about their own lives. The floating jellyfish pulsed. Another primitive practice that we observed. But we changed, Hana said. We decided that this was wrong too. We fought for women's rights. We changed our laws and our attitudes. Today, half of our political leaders are women, and in many countries women have more opportunities than men. She continued walking. 200 years ago, humans thought it was acceptable to work children 12 hours a day in dangerous factories. 100 years ago, we thought it was fine to dump poison into our rivers and smoke into our air. 50 years ago, we thought people who loved someone of the same gender were mentally ill. The tree alien spoke softly. And you changed your minds about all of these things? Yes, Hana said. And we are still changing. Right now, today, humans are deciding that many things we currently accept are actually wrong. We are changing how we treat animals. We are changing how we think about mental illness. We are changing how we organize our economies. She paused in the center of the circle. This is what you do not understand about human development. We do not grow toward a fixed endpoint. We grow toward constant questioning of whether we can be better. Nex's lights pulsed in a rapid pattern. But this constant change must create instability. How can you build a lasting civilization if you are always changing your fundamental beliefs? Hana smiled. That is exactly the point. We do not want a lasting civilization if it means we stop improving. The silence that followed was different from all the previous silences. This one felt almost shocked. Let me tell you about something that happened just 5 years ago, Hana continued. There was a young girl named Bomi Park who lived in Seoul. She was born with a condition that made it hard for her to learn in the same way as other children. She began walking again, but slower now, as if the weight of this story was important. 10 years ago, children like Bomi were sent to special schools, where they were kept separate from other children. We thought this was the kind thing to do, to put them somewhere they would not be embarrassed or left behind. The crystal spider played a gentle melody. This seems logical. It seemed logical to us too, Hana agreed. But Bomi's mother, Yoonhee Park, did not accept this solution. She argued that her daughter should be allowed to attend regular school with other children. The shadow creature's arms moved restlessly. But surely this would be difficult for the child who learns differently. Yes, it was difficult, Hana said. Bomi struggled. She needed extra help. She learned more slowly than the other children. Some parents complained that she was slowing down their children's education. She stopped walking and looked around the circle, but something unexpected happened. The other children in Bomi's class started helping her. They learned to be patient. They learned to explain things in different ways. They learned that being smart is not just about learning quickly. It is also about being kind and helpful. The tree alien rustled thoughtfully. The other children learned from her presence. Yes, Hana said, and the teachers learned too. They discovered that when they explained things in ways that Bomi could understand, all the children learned better. The teaching methods that helped Bomi actually helped everyone. She walked to the viewing wall again. Now, schools across Korea are changing how they teach all children, not just children with learning differences. And it all started because one mother refused to accept that the way we had always done things was the best way. The floating jellyfish pulsed brightly. So your species changes based on the experiences of individuals? Constantly, Hana said. Every day, millions of humans question whether the way we do things is the best way. Most of the time, we decide that what we are doing is fine. But sometimes, someone like Yoon-hee Park comes along and shows us a better way. She turned back to face the council. This is why we have not achieved your kind of perfect peace. Because we refuse to accept that any solution is final. We refuse to stop asking if we can do better. Nexa's lights dimmed slightly. But surely this constant questioning must create chaos and conflict? Yes, Hana admitted. It does. When humans start questioning old ways of doing things, other humans resist. We argue, we disagree, sometimes we fight. She paused. But that arguing and disagreeing is how we figure out which changes are good and which changes are bad. Our conflicts are not signs of failure, they are signs that we are still growing. The crystal spider played a complex harmony before speaking. You are saying that your species chooses growth over stability. I am saying that for humans, growth is stability, Hana said. A society that stops changing is a society that starts dying. She walked back to the center of the circle and sat down on the glowing floor one final time. You asked me to explain Earth. You asked me to justify humanity. I cannot do either of those things because humans are not a finished product that can be explained or justified. She looked up at each alien in turn. We are a process. We are a species in the middle of becoming something new, something better, something we have never been before. We do not know what we will become, and that uncertainty is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. The chamber was completely silent. Even the background humming had stopped. You have achieved perfect societies, Hana continued. You have solved all your problems. You have reached the end of your development. But that means you have also reached the end of your potential. She stood up slowly. Humans have not reached the end of anything. We are still discovering what we can become. We are still learning what we are capable of. We are still growing into something that has never existed before. Nex spoke, and for the first time, its voice sounded uncertain. You suggest that incompleteness is superior to perfection. I suggest that becoming is more important than being, Hana said. You are perfect, but you are also finished. We are imperfect, but we are still becoming. She gestured toward Earth. That planet created a species that looks at any limitation and asks, what if we could do better? That planet created minds that refuse to accept that any problem is unsolvable, that any suffering is inevitable, that any injustice is permanent. The tree alien spoke softly. And you believe this makes your species worthy of joining our galactic community? Hana shook her head. I do not know if we are worthy. I do not know if we deserve a place among you. But I know that we will keep